Anyone native English speaking? Yes, we might need some help, maybe. Yeah, just chip in. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Okay. So, hello, welcome everyone. We had this spontaneous academic quarter due to technical problems. But anyway, welcome to this morning session. We will present three freestanding courses. And together with Agnes Backegård, I will start with the first one. I will present you in just a moment. Yeah, so following a quite regular pattern, there are summers of wasps. And that basically means that there are a lot of wasps in a summer of wasps. And this year, 2020, was actually supposed to be a summer of wasps. But like many other things, this corona year, it got cancelled or maybe postponed. And actually the scientists don't know why this happened. There is no explanation. Something has changed. We will come back to wasps soon, I think. My name is Thomas Laurin, and I'm a teacher at HDK, and I'm course responsible and initiator of a freestanding course, and the name is Design and the Post-Humanist Perspective. It's a course, advanced level, 15 credits. And this spring, when the course ran, one of the students was Agnes Backegård. You are an art director, designer, and strategist, and also founder of the art and communication agency Where Is My Pony?
Yes.
Yeah. And short in just a second, you will tell us a little bit about the project that you did in the course. And what happens actually, basically in the course, is that the students work with a design project, and along the way they encounter theory, concepts, etc. from this post-humanist discourse, one could say. And maybe now it's time to return to the wasps.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I had no idea that I was going to work with wasps at this class. That was a coincidence. Because I was interested in taking this class to begin with. I'm not sure how much I'm going to talk about this now, but I was interested in taking this class to get a new perspective on sustainability, which I work with on a daily basis as a designer and art director and a strategist, obviously. And this class started out by a very... we were going to work with another kind of process that I'm actually used to by not knowing what was going to happen. So we were addressed to pick out a place that we wanted to explore. And it could be any place. It could be a place in the nature or on the body or wherever. And I was very bound to my home at that particular time. So I started to look around me, and I found out that maybe I should just start where I work. So I started working with my window and the board with my window where I had different plants and so forth. So we were going to explore how many kinds of biota or biological things that we were going to find in this particular space. And I started to look what was there, and I found out that there was a lot of insects that were coming in from my garden to this particular place, because there was a door out to my garden next to the window, and it's always open because my cat wants to run back and forth through that. So in the summer, I had all these wasps coming in, and it was a bit of a problem because my son is very scared of wasps. I don't like them. They disturb my family dinners, both inside and outside on the porch when we are, sitting there in the summer enjoying fika or whatever. And this has turned out to be quite a conflict. And I didn't really realize that I had a conflict with these wasps until I started to examine my window. So that was kind of a little bit of a revelation for me that I had conflicts that I wasn't aware of. So this WASP project was turning into a process of researching our social boundaries, which is very much what the posthumanism actually is about. It's about where nature and culture meets and the division between man and the nature. So suddenly I found myself in the very core of what this class was about. And I was trying to explore my relationship to these wasps.
Let's chip in one of the prepared cards here. Yeah. And this one is by Val Plumwood, an ecofeminist and philosopher, because it relates to your project very, very, very much. So she says, 2 major tasks for Western science and philosophy, and actually what the posthumanist project is about, 2 things. It is about resituating the human in ecological terms, and it is about resituating the non-human in ethical terms. So there we had this. You had this conflict, and you had to transform somehow as a human being, and the relation needed to change somehow.
Yeah, and we talked about that a lot in the classroom, about the relationship we had with nature and how how that must change to be able to. I mean, it's also about living a more rich life, I guess. It's about not being not being so distance to why we are here and what it's all about, and why do we have these conflicts, and what do they mean, basically. So I addressed a lot of large questions into this project because I needed this in my personal life at that very particular moment. So
what did you do? What is this that the image shows?
It ended up with me getting friends with the wasps, and that was a process to getting there, because I wasn't friend with them at all, and it turned out that in the end I was inviting the wasps to dinner, basically, and to get there it was a kind of a process. So I started out by trying to, how are we going to cohabit together? How are we going to live together in this particular place? How are we going to share this space that is actually my house? Because they live in my house because they build their nest on my attic. I had a bunch of them up just above my living room on the attic. And so we shared the same house, we shared the same space, and we also shared my garden because they were eating stuff from my garden, and they also pollinated my apple trees and so forth. So they helped me with my life, and in return I was very negative about them. So it started out with, okay, how can we live together? How can we address each other, but not invade each other? Because I also found out through this design process that they were black and yellow, with black and yellow stripes, and that is the very sign for keep away, that also we human use when we try to, in the traffic, or we put out these stripes with black and yellow plastband. What is that called?
Plastic ribbons.
Yeah, when we want to separate different areas with people and so forth. So I wanted them to respect my privacy, but I also needed to respect their privacy. So it was very much a social experience. And then after that, I was thinking, okay, what can we do more than live together? Can we maybe play together? And then okay, what do wasps play with? And I started out experimenting with these paper dragons, and maybe I can fly with them. And if I know this is really crappy, I can't do that. This is not very good. And since so much about living and getting a good life is about eating, I finally decided, okay, let's share my dinner. So this is what you see here, the wasp diner that turned out is basically a way to give them from my food, which is in this case is food waste. I mean, you can't really, I don't cook for them, but there is a recipe involved in this anyway. So and it's also turned out, when I did some research about wasps, that if they find food, they will return to that particular place until the food is gone, since it's eaten. So if I put this wasp diner a bit further off in my garden, maybe I could teach them to fly there instead of my dinner, which is not there all the time. So I was trying to get a
distance.
Yeah, get a distance between to also respect that we need to live in the same place, but not at the actual dinner table. Yeah. So that's kind of part of the process.
Yeah, and sorry, before we move on to more maybe a larger picture maybe, let's take this other card, which also is about your project, I think, because for you, when there was a conflict, probably you thought of wasps as non-charismatic. Yeah? Yeah. So this is a quote by Joyce Carol Oates, the author, and it's kind of an art definition, and I think it's a good challenge, or it's a good thing to remember. Okay, the quote goes like this: "My belief is that art should not be comforting. For comfort, we have mass entertainment and one another. Art should provoke, disturb, arouse our emotions, and expand our sympathies in directions we may not anticipate and may not even wish." So I think this is about your transformation during this period, where you ended up actually knowing very much about wasps and also creating something in line with their habits, but something that also changed the relation between you and the wasps into like a manageable relation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So, but one reason, or one reason for this course to start with is that there is a difference, I think, or we think, between the conventional sustainability discourse and post-humanism. Can you say something about that?
Okay. Yeah, I think I have worked as a designer and a communicator for almost 20 years now, and I also work with some of the largest companies in Gothenburg, mostly business to business, sometimes business to consumer, and when they want to talk about their brand or their strategic development, they also want to include sustainability, and I gladly talk about that. But I recently, a couple of years ago, I ran into some personal problems with how am I going to address this, because it means that if we are going to take the economics that surrounds the business and add a little sustainability to maybe change the business a little bit, it just turns out to be some kind of utanpåverk.
Some shallow
varnish. Yeah, it's like, okay, maybe we can do this also. But what we are facing now due to the global climate crisis and so forth is that we need to address this issue in a completely different way to be able to reach the goals or to be able to make some real change. And the posthumanist perspective helped me to find out that instead of going the usual direction, we have to start by looking at the ecological and it's a cultural thing, basically. It's about the connection between how can I say this in a good way in English? We have to address the real issues and move towards the business from that way instead of the other way around, to be able to actually make some change. But that is very difficult when you come out to industries that always have had the different perspectives of how are you going to combine these two. And that is not something that you can change in a day. It needs time, and we don't really have time. So this class really changed it for me, because it gave me some self-leadership that I needed to be able to address these issues in a different way. And if I don't have a clear path or a way to expand my issues, how am I going to change other people or so forth? But I'm also aware of that I am not able to change the world, but maybe I can change my world. And that is a really good start, I guess. So, and it's also a hard process to actually incorporate this in your life, but you have to start somewhere. So, yeah.
But it is a conceptual framework. It's a mindset. So, and we are so kind of wired culturally to think and act in a way that really puts the human being in center of everything. So it's about relearning, unlearning, or rewiring our mindsets. That's extremely difficult, almost impossible. But we can take it step by step. And but I think just realizing this, the urgency now, this window of maybe there is a window that makes it possible to kind of halt the catastrophe. But that is like until 2030, some scientists say. So that creates like a feeling of urgency. And then more and more people start to realize that the conventional sustainability discourse is not enough. It's not radical enough. It's not criticizing the systems that are causing the problems. So I think that's also why posthumanism has momentum at the moment and is really influencing more and more arenas, I would say. So how to work with this in a more strategic...
And when I found that out, it was like, okay, finally we can start working with these feminist tools that I've been trying to grasp during the years, and finding out how can we address this to our relationship to the nature. But it also kind of you can also use these ideas to move what is important in an issue or in a question. Because if the biota or the ecological system is put in a higher up in the hierarchy, and it gets I mean, the same importance as other things, then you can really start working with this in a different way. But it's a hard thing to actually reach the people that need to understand this. I mean, look at the feminist issue at itself has been a really long travel to get where we are now. And I think addressing this to nature, that is all historically just some skafferi, a resource that we can use, the humans can use to enrich ourselves. It's a big thing. It's a big issue.
Yeah, to rethink objects and transform them into subjects instead.
Yeah.
To create a world full of subjects instead of us being the only subjects, and then a lot of objects that we can only, as you said, only use as resources.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what was your question?
I mean, since you have this title, actually, you are a strategist.
Yeah.
So then I'm curious, or I would like to have some needs. I need some help, maybe, or many people need help in working in a more strategic way about trying to spread a certain maybe mindset, let's say.
But I think working with these issues is so hard, and I think many people have a very, I mean, it's the complexity of it is so vast. So where are you going to begin? And I think by getting into this process with the Wasp diner, it was like, okay, I don't have to think at all. I can just do this and see what happens. So this is not a product that you can buy. This is a do-it-yourself Wasp diner. It's actually just a jar with holes in it that you can put food in and some sticks so that wasps can climb. I'm not really sure if it works yet because there were no wasps this summer, so I couldn't really try it out. But but I mean, it's not about thinking about this. It's not about being overall strategic about this. It's start doing things, and by doing you also learn. So I try to, when I talk to people about this and what we're going to do and what is the next step, I try to make it as easy as possible. Okay, we don't have to have like this long-term vision. We start with this, and then maybe we do this, and then we'll see. And slowly we can transform in working with values and new visions and so forth in companies or in whatever. Yeah.
And one, and also just what I remember from May this May, when you were going to present this project, it coincided with the usual thing when a summer of wasps is expected, and that is that you can read about it in newspaper. It's like on the front page, you can read it on newspaper leaflets, löpsedlar. So it's really prepare for the summer of wasps and how to avoid them and kill them and everything.
Yeah.
And that was like in parallel when you presented this project. So we were all expecting it to be a summer of wasps, and then it was cancelled. And I thought about it during the summer. Where are they? Yeah.
I thought first they were at my wasp diner, but they weren't there either. Well, some, but not very many. And I usually have plenty of them because they live in my house, obviously. Yeah. So.
But I think one small. It's not a small thing, but it's a totally like a turnover, or how you say, for a designer. We often think about stakeholders. We have a situation or something that can be changed, and we need to listen to voices and experiences, and just to do this extra thing to also try to identify non-human stakeholders. That is the thing, to identify non-human stakeholders and then try to give them voice, or try to understand what are their needs and what happens if we do this and that with more than human stakeholders. And that is precisely what you did.
Yeah, and we also looked a little bit at what's her name, Aglert's.
Katja
Aglet.
Aglet,
Katja Aglet's work, and she's been working with snails, like
Yeah.
these killer snails. And she was also trying to grasp, how am I going to not become a mass murderer every evening? And how am I going to address this? Because, I mean, wasps is one thing, because they actually provide something from to me as well. But the snails, I mean, that's really different things, and that's really interesting. How are we going to be friends with something that is actually not useful to us at all, and accept that they exist and that they also have a purpose in some way? And that makes it so much harder. And that was actually my main question to this project. How am I going to befriend with a bug that I really don't like and that causes problem to me and my family? But I mean, if Katja Aglet could do it with killer snails, maybe I could, at least try. So I really love her work. If you are familiar with it, she's been co-working together and making paintings and stuff together with snails and so forth. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and one thing that you often see in projects, artistic projects or design projects that have this post-humanist ambition, is that they are often very, at first hand, maybe they are quite naive, but that's where we need to start, with really, really basic and naive questions. How are you, for instance?
Yeah.
And try to understand how can I ask the question and how can I get an answer?
Yeah.
Because that's what happens when you subjectify something.
But do you encounter something similar with your work? Shimmer.
With the shimmer
Yeah,
and entanglements. For instance, I work with a project situated in a river basin here in Sweden, and I think there will be a lot of part projects within this umbrella, but I think one conflict absolutely that we will work with is the relationship between beavers and human beings, because beavers are keystone species, and that means that they actually they provide possibilities for life, so they create really biodiversity, and yet there is this conflict almost always between human beings and beavers. So that's something we will work with.
In what way?
Just maybe trying to change people's attitudes towards beavers, maybe.
But isn't beaver really lovable?
Yeah, but
cute, and
they are constantly being shot and taken away.
Okay. By whom?
By people who own, let's say, forest close to the water, to the river.
Okay.
And also hunters who think it's nice to kill a beaver.
It's nice to kill a beaver.
Yeah,
but you can't eat them?
Yes, you can.
Can you eat a beaver?
Yes.
Have you ate a beaver?
I don't eat.
You don't eat meat?
But I've seen it on a menu.
No.
Yes.
Like in a restaurant?
Yes.
Like a beaver stew?
Yes. I don't know what you do with them.
Okay.
So yeah, beavers are charismatic, but still, there need to be a change in this relationship between beavers and human beings.
Okay.
They contribute with a lot, and how can we contribute back to them with something?
You can make them a beaver diner.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
No. I don't know.
So we have some time to open up to the floor. If we have a really nice audience here.
Large crowd.
Yeah. And I think you are the ones who are here. You have a special interest in child culture. Did you think about anything in this discussion in relation maybe to child culture? Yeah? Children's relationship with nature. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it has to start there. Yeah. Yeah. And there has actually been, I know there has been some projects in the past from the program Child Culture, Child Design Culture, about this, about working with children, like maybe in a city context, and just getting to know what is there in terms of plants and animals, etc.
But maybe you think that's also basic because we've been working with it for a long time, but also that the urban landscape is also part of the nature, and the wasps is very present everywhere in the urban context. So that was something that we talked about a lot of times in the class as well, of how are we going to incorporate this kind of urban environment in the ecological discussions. And maybe that is something that is talked about a lot nowadays with city planning and stadsodling. What's that called in English?
City gardening.
City gardening, yeah. But I think every day, in every day, you don't really think about that you're walking around in nature, as in the nature being a structure that humans is a human nature, the city basically, and therefore it's nature.
Yeah.
So I think there was so many things in these theories that is making you look about things in your ordinary life in a different way. And that's really changing you in a way. Yeah.
And also to learn then, let's say as a designer, to also, because like in this space right now, apart from all the microbes in our bodies, of course, and bacteria and everything that are part of this conversation as well, but if I would ask you, do we see any non-human stakeholders in this situation? You would probably say no. It's quite empty of non-human biota, living stakeholders. But then we need to also think about all the objects, for instance. What are they connected with? What are their shadow places? And when we identify where the material come from, etc., where it will end, in all those contexts, there will be non-human stakeholders as well, and they are with us in this very moment also. But we just need to kind of get better in realizing that.
But I was thinking about you guys who are studying child culture. What a opportunity to actually start opening up the world in a different way from the beginning, because when we are stuck in this system, in what we have learned and what we are part of, it's really hard to relearn. So this is it's really interesting, and I suppose you work with that a lot in your education as well, right? I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. You have one.
Yeah, it was making me think about, so when you were talking about your relationship with the wasps, in terms of child culture, there's something around how we learn to listen and engage differently with people who we're not used to engaging differently with on a day-to-day basis. And thinking about children and how we kind of have to interact differently, because there's a lot of communication that happens non-verbally or in very different ways that we don't practice regularly, like play, for example. I just wondered if you could talk a bit more about that, in terms of what you learned about how you had to behave differently with the wasps particularly.
Well, yeah, because we started out with a conflict. I actually tried to stay away from them. I was scared of them, and I moved around them in a certain way. But after I befriended them and we became pals and I started to know more about them, I wasn't scared of them at all. They could, walk on my body and I didn't really mind. So, and that was a result of this, as you called, non-verbal
process that was just about this exploration and trying to understand and looking at them in a different way and trying to focus on them and being interested in what they of their habits and what they were doing there in a different way.
Yes,
So-
and in that specific example, it's about trust, and that is scientifically proven. So wasps learn to trust different people according to the people's what they have done in the past. So a mean person, there will be a conflict, whereas a person that they feel trust with.
Well, Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, when you're scared, your body, evaporates some kind of pheromones, and the wasps like that. So if you're scared, the wasp you attract the wasps, which is quite opposite of what you want to achieve. So, if you're not scared, they don't address you in the same way. So that was pretty awesome, interesting. Yeah.
Okay, Agnes, thank you very much for being here.
And thank you.
Yeah, thanks for contributing with so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Mm.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and thank you who listened. Thank you, audience.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.